I'm Shelley Terrell, and I'm excited to have Ken Wilson, an international speaker, author, blogger, and teacher trainer who specializes in animating your English lessons. His book, Drama and Improvisation, has over 50 lessons for language learners of all levels. Ken, tell us a little about the English Teaching Theatre.
The English Teaching Theatre started in a language school called International House in London in the 1970s. And it was originally designed as some kind of interactive drama activity between teachers and students, but eventually it became a stage show with 5 actors on stage performing to an audience. And there was lots of audience participation. And to begin with, it was just a little thing we did in London, and then we got invited to go on tour. And then the tours suddenly began to mushroom, and some of the original teachers, like me and my colleague Doug Case and another woman called Hazel Imbert, we stayed involved with the company, but we started employing actors because we had these monumental tours to Africa and the Far East and Latin America, and we did shows to usually about 300 or 400 people, but sometimes a lot more. And it was sometimes quite difficult because we had these song words on cards. But the key, the message that came out of doing this show was that you get, kids from some small town in Spain who didn't have much chance to meet English people and didn't have an awful lot of motivation to learn English. And they thoroughly enjoyed this show because it was quite funny. It was quite interactive and funny. And teachers all over the place said it was really easy to teach their students after they'd been to see one of our shows. And that's, for me, the lasting memory of it, is that kids came into this show with no particular interest in the language or the show, and they left kind of with a great interest in finding out more about English.
Now, the shows were very interactive with the audience participating as well?
Well, the main thing was, as I say, the original idea that the person who founded the theatre, the principal of International House, his name was John Haycroft, he wanted some kind of interactive drama activity where students would be involved in acting things out. And that's a nice idea, a drama club sort of activity. But in the end, our show was a stage show, 5 actors on stage, acting musicians on stage, lots of music. Audiences would sing songs, they'd shout out answers, and sometimes they'd come on the stage. And this was also interesting. They came on stage to play games and stuff. And we'd go out before the show into the audience to find likely people who would be good on stage. And then during the show, we'd watch people and see people who were laughing a lot and things. And often we'd get some kid, and as we were leading them onto the stage, the teacher would say, "Don't take him, he doesn't know anything." And I thought, well, this is really interesting. We found out that kids have responded to a different kind of stimulus. And doesn't mean, sometimes people misunderstand this message, that you have to be funny in class. Not that at all. It's just that sometimes, we all know that kids have, there's different ways to sort of ring bells for certain kinds of learners, particularly young learners.
Okay, and so why use drama with language learners?
Well, can I first of all say, although people describe me as a drama expert, I don't really like the word drama. And I think for lots of different reasons, it really gives the wrong impression of what we're talking about, something a bit rather serious and something that involves plays or Shakespeare or something. I prefer the word animation. And I use this word carefully. Animation means bringing to life. And so you have a book, and there's all this stuff in the book, and the book's okay, but occasionally it's time to close the book and just try and animate the language that you found there, and that language that's kind of floating around passively in the student's own mind. And there's some very simple drama activities you can use to bring this out. A lot of teachers get a little bit alarmed, especially non-native speaker teachers, because they think it involves a lot more language and a lot more creativity than it really does. And in my book, Drama and Improvisation, people say, all your activities are aimed at elementary students. And I say, well, not all of them, but they are. It says elementary and other levels, because I really want these activities to be accessible to students who only have a little bit of language. Can I give you an example, Shelley?
Yes, I actually, please do.
Because I have an activity, a really, really simple activity called Be Someone Else. And what happens is the teacher takes the student out of the class and ask them 4 very simple questions. What's your name? What nationality are you? Where do you live? What do you do? Obviously, in the case of a class of students of 15-year-olds in the same town, almost all the answers are the same. But then you say, now I want you to be someone else, and I want every answer to those 4 questions to be different. You give the student no preparation time. This is another great thing about some of the activities in this book, is that I don't expect them to be sitting for half an hour devising some kind of role for themselves. I don't like role play at all. I think role play, I like people to be who they are and just change a bit. This is a kind of a role play in itself, but there's no preparation involved. And they give another name, another nationality, another place that they live, and the thing that they do. And the example that always springs to mind, I did it in a small town in Poland, and the girl came out and she said what her name was, and then I said, right, be somebody else, and she was Sandra. She was an Australian police officer. So the thing is, it's easy. It's something that they can handle for themselves, very simple. What happens next is that the rest of the class ask her about her new personality, her new persona. And it's very self-regulating. The students will only ask questions that they can ask. They won't go, it's impossible to ask a question if you don't know how to say it. The possibility, of course, is that the student in the class might ask a question that the student playing the role at the front doesn't understand. But she'll simply ask him to repeat it or to translate it. There's nothing wrong with translating it if all the students speak the same language. And 95% of cases, classes are monolingual. So that's the kind of thing I like the idea of doing something a bit different, but not that involves a lot of work, a lot of preparation, and a lot of language things that the teacher feels uncomfortable about. These are very, very simple activities. Just take people away from the book a little bit.
Now, these are all very easy to prepare for teachers as well. They don't need, do they need any background materials or anything like that?
There's 1 or 2 things, but basically some of the activities involve a piece of paper and a pencil. You make notes before you do something. But no, there are lots of wonderful... I have great admiration for teachers who put on plays with their students and who design costumes and design sets and things like that. But, that's great. And continue to do that. Performance of a show in English is one of the most amazing experiences that a student can have. But it's also quite amazing to come into class, to say something a bit new, to get a laugh from the rest of the class, and to go home and think, I did something really different in class today. And for me, the important thing about these activities is that it helps the teacher in the sense that the class becomes something that the people enjoy coming to. And, that's nice for everybody. And I always tell teachers I want activities to be teacher-friendly, because you're a teacher a lot longer than your students are students. You're in this business for a long time. I want the activities to make a teacher's life better as well and more fun.
And what do you tell a teacher who says, I have a bunch of 14-year-olds and they're not going to do this? What has been your experience with that?
Well, I think that's an attitude situation. I mean, I have been asked to go into lots of classes in strange places and say, can you do something with these kids? And I can, because I believe I can. But I can't go to every class in the world and say, okay, just give me 5 minutes with this crowd and I'll wake them up. I mean, I probably could wake them up, but I think it's very hard to persuade teachers who have that situation. But if they just try, I'm not trying to say that the only activities for this are in my book, but there are lots and lots of activities around the place. Animation, just bringing to life the language that they've been learning and making the class more fun. I think you have to remember something else, Shelley, which is that, I was top of the class in French at school, and I was kind of 2nd or 3rd in German. I enjoyed learning languages at school. I enjoyed walking into that classroom knowing that it was going to be, okay, I wouldn't have any problems. Some of my best friends were terrified of their French classes because going into a language class was a terrifying experience for them. And I think you have to bear that in mind, that a lot of students go into class a bit nervous about the way the class normally is. And these kind of activities sometimes give that kid a chance just to shine for a moment, just by saying something a bit unusual, or by being a tree, for goodness sake. If you've got other people doing things, you need a tree. So you get a good-looking boy from the back of the class who never said anything, and he just stands there and he's a tree for a while, and you give him a round of applause for being a tree. Anything that makes them feel, that they've contributed and they've done something a bit different, and it's not such an ordeal anymore. And a lot of these activities are amazing for bringing out those kind of kids. For example, I believe it's important to use lots of drawings in class. Allow your students to draw, because there's always a class. This is not a drama activity as such, but if you need images, get the students to draw them. Everybody draw an animal. Show the animals that your least successful language students have drawn. Look at this fantastic crocodile that this kid has just drawn. And that gives them a sense that they've done something valuable in the class as well. Not just drama, music, art, all these things that people might be able to do, and bring them into the classroom and show that person, let that person have their moment of in the spotlight. I think it's important.
Yeah, I definitely do too. And thank you so much for talking with us today. Your workshops are fantastic, and I've actually done some of these improvisation. You actually have your audience, instead of a PowerPoint, do these activities. So I definitely recommend people go and participate in them as well. So thank you so much for talking with us today.
Okay, take care, Shelley. Bye.